Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Outside the Squared Circle. I'm your boy Frank. I know you guys are looking for Dennis. Unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties connecting with each other through Uvu, so I'm gonna have to solo this one. So Dennis, this one's for you, man. But getting right to the point of the Gennady Golovkin versus Willie Monroe Jr. fight tonight, man. I mean, Golovkin did what he had to do. I don't think we expected anything less than a Gennady Golovkin knockout in this fight. I mean, Willie Monroe's a very good fighter, but he just doesn't have the skill set to compete with Gennady Golovkin. And even with that said, I thought Willie Monroe had some good points in the fight. I think the third round and the fourth round, you could have easily scored his way, even though I only gave him the fourth round. But he was hitting Gennady with some really, really good shots. And that actually posed a question that me and Dennis were talking on Facebook afterwards, and he was like, man, Gennady Golovkin is getting hit with a lot of shots. What is he going to do when he faces someone like Miguel Cotto or Canelo Alvarez? And I was like, I thought it was a very good point, because Gennady is there to be hit. He's not a terrible defender, but that's not his MO at the same time. He's a come-forward fighter. He likes to systematically break you down, but in the process of doing that, he really, really leaves himself open to get hit. And Willie Monroe was just one of the few fighters who have been able to hit him. We've seen Curtis Stevens hit Gennady Golovkin with some pretty good shots. We've seen Gabriel Zotto hit him with some pretty good shots. And now we've seen Willie Monroe hit him with some pretty good shots. And so at this point, it's clear that Gennady Golovkin can be hit. And it's also clear that he has a hell of a chin, because even though Willie Monroe isn't the hardest of punchers, he's still a full-fledged 160-pounder. So getting hit by him doesn't exactly tickle. So, I mean, we've seen in the past that Gennady's there to be hit. So I think it's a good question, man. I'm not going to lie to you guys when I tell you that before the Golovkin versus Willie Monroe fight, I favored Golovkin probably 70-30, 80-20 towards Canelo. But maybe I'm living in the moment with the last 2 weeks, but with the way Canelo looked against James Kirkland and the way Gennady looked tonight, I think the fight's a little bit closer than I initially thought. I think Canelo has a hell of a shot, man. I don't know if he can do it. I'd like to see him fight at 160 first before he takes on Gennady Golovkin, but I mean, that fight has to be made at some point. But back to the fight. The one thing that you just notice with Gennady Golovkin is he is so damn good at shifting and so good at cutting off a ring. And you know what's funny is that there were people who I've seen in the build-up to this fight trying to say that Gennady Golovkin is flat-footed. And I think there's a really weird misconception with fighters that come forward that they automatically put them or label them flat-footed. And I don't think that's very fair. Just because you don't fight on your back foot, or just because you don't dance around the ring a la Floyd Mayweather or Muhammad Ali or a Sugar Ray Leonard, doesn't mean you're flat-footed. I mean, when you look at someone flat-footed, I think of a Danny Garcia or even Canelo to some degree. They have hard times cutting off the ring, and a fighter that moves really troubles them. But I mean, Gennady Golovkin he's so light on his feet, and the way he shifts and cuts off a ring, I mean, you can't call the man flat-footed. I mean, you can call him a lot of things, but flat-footed isn't one of them. And the other thing that I really like to see in Gennady Golovkin is you can see the way he thinks. And I think there's another misconception when it comes to Golovkin, that people will say, oh, he's just a come-forward brawler. He's mindless. He just comes forward throwing punches. But you can really see him thinking in the ring. I mean, everything he does seems to be calculated. He throws certain punches to see how his opponent's going to react to a punch. And then from that point on, he sees an opening and he tries to capitalize on that. I mean, and you see that with his feints. You see that with punches that he throws. So I think that's a bad misconception of him, that he just comes forward and throws punches, because he's a lot more than that. You can really see him thinking in the fight, and you can see him trying to systematically break down his opponent. The other thing that we saw, man, is that Willie Monroe has heart. I mean, he could have checked out in that second round and got out of there, but he decided to stay and fight. And as ironic as it is, Willie Monroe's MO is to move. He's a boxer. He doesn't like to sit in the pocket too often, but the times he had the most success was when he stood in the pocket against Gennady Golovkin. And I know some people are saying, oh, well, Gennady Golovkin let him do that. I don't like to get into that. You can sit here and say so-and-so let so-and-so do this. the word let is what gets me, because we don't really know what they let happen. The fact of the matter is Willie Monroe looked pretty good in the third and the fourth round, and he was catching them with some pretty big shots when he was staying in the pocket, which was a different, I guess. I don't really know the word for it, but it just was unexpected, I guess is a better word. You just didn't expect Willie Monroe to be able to stand in the pocket and trade with Gennady and survive for the period of time that he did. The one thing I was actually a bit disappointed in Gennady Golovkin is after the second round, he became a headhunter. One of Gennady Golovkin's huge strengths is his body punching. And I think he could have got him out of there in that third round or maybe even fourth round had he started going to the body like he was in the first 2 rounds. But I think he fell in love a little bit with his power after knocking Monroe down in the second round. But ultimately, Gennady Golovkin finished him off like we all expected him to anyway. Like I said in the past, I can only be disappointed. I mean, I'm nitpicking. I can only be disappointed in someone that I like, someone that I see something in. So, I mean, I'm nitpicking there. Gennady Golovkin looked great. I think Monroe had a great showing too, though. I mean, no one really gave him a chance, so losing wasn't the worst of things for him. So I think he'll get a decent fight here in the near future. For Gennady Golovkin, though, I mean, he didn't look his best. If I were to rate his performance, I'd say he was probably a B. Maybe I'm being a little bit too hard on him, but I'm a fan of his. I like to critique the fighters that I'm fans of. But at the same time, to think that this wasn't Gennady Golovkin's best performance, yet he still stops his opponent in 6 rounds and knocks him down 3 times, that's scary. That's extremely scary. As for what's next, I mean, what I really want for the sport of boxing is a Canelo Alvarez versus Miguel Cotto fight later this year. So with that said, neither of them will probably fight Gennady Golovkin by the end of this year. So what I'm really hoping for is Gennady Golovkin fighting the winner of David Lemieux and Indam. I think that would be a really, really good fight. And actually, Dennis brought up a question and said, well, if Willie Monroe is hitting him with these type of punches, what's going to happen if Lemieux gets his hands on him? And I thought that's a solid question. I mean, Lemieux has the power to hurt anyone at 160. So I think that'd be a really interesting fight. But honestly, when it's all said and done, I really want Gennady Golovkin to fight the winner of Canelo Alvarez and Miguel Cotto. I don't see why anyone wouldn't want that fight. I think that fight, I mean, him versus either of the 2 fighters is a huge mega fight. But if Canelo and Miguel Cotto fight each other, that's going to really build an opponent for Gennady Golovkin, and that would probably be the biggest fight in the sport to be made, maybe outside of Kovalev versus Stevenson. So that's what I'd like to see next out of Gennady Golovkin. You guys can comment and tell us who you think he should fight next, or maybe you think he should move up to 168 and fight Ward, even though I'd like to see that fight a little bit further in the future. I think the fights between Canelo and or Cotto are better fights at this point in time. I'd like to see Andre Ward get back in the ring once or twice to see how he looks. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say, guys. There's not much to be said about the fight. Oh, and another thing is, I know I'm not the only one. Today was the first time I've seen Roman Gonzalez fight. I've seen his highlights. I've seen a few clips on YouTube. And man, that dude is scary. I mean, he's in a lot of people's top 10 pound for pound lists. And now I know why. I mean, the dude can flat out fight. He's a great fighter. Hopefully he can put on a little bit of weight and maybe get to the 120s, 122, 126, because I think then he could really build his name. But just being at such a lightweight, I'm a huge boxing fan, but I can't lie to you guys when I tell you that it's hard for me to keep track of the very, very lightweights. 122 and 126 is where I start to come in terms of entertainment and in terms of me knowing who fighters are and trying to, you know, who I'd like to see fight who. So hopefully he can, I know he weighed in, I believe, 124 today, so maybe he can put a little bit more meat on his bones and hop up and take on some of the contenders from there. But yeah, guys, that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed the fights. Comment below. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to put a link to our Facebook page. Please like it. Please subscribe to our channel. Let me know if I did anything wrong in this podcast. I know I'm missing my boy Dennis, but hopefully he'll be here for the next one and we can solve the technical difficulties. So I hope you guys have a good night, man. Enjoy your night.